Addiction. You cannot begin the work of releasing an addiction until you can acknowledge that you are addicted. Until you realize you have an addiction, it is not possible to diminish its power. The personality rationalizes its addictions. It dresses them in attractive clothing. It presents them to itself and others as desirable or beneficial. A person who is addicted to alcohol, for example, will say to herself or himself or to others that drunkenness is a way of loosening up, of relaxing after a tense day, of having fun, and therefore it is constructive. A person who is addicted to sex will say to herself or himself or to others that random sexual encounters are expressions of closeness or love, that they reflect an evolved and liberated perception, and therefore they are desirable. Recognition of your own addictions requires inner work. It requires that you look clearly at the places where you lose power in your life, where you are controlled by external circumstances. It requires going through your defenses, even when striving for clarity, or when outer circumstances, such as an injury caused by driving drunk or a marriage wrecked by promiscuity, provide evidence of an addiction. The personality often clings to a perception of its addiction as a mere problem, initially as a small problem, then as a bigger problem, and then as a significant problem. Why does the personality resist acknowledging its addictions? Acknowledging an addiction, accepting that you have an addiction, is acknowledgement that a part of you is out of control. The personality resists acknowledging its addictions because that forces it to choose to leave a part of itself out of control, or to do something about it. Once an addiction has been acknowledged, it cannot be ignored, and it cannot be released without changing your life. Without changing your self-image, without changing your entire perceptual and conceptual framework. We do not want to do that because it is our nature to resist change. Therefore, we resist acknowledging our addictions. An addiction is not merely an attraction. It is natural for males and females to admire each other, for example, and to feel a warmth and attraction toward each other. An addiction is more than that. An addiction is characterized by magnetism and fear. There is attraction plus fear, plus a jolt of energy that is out of proportion to the situation. Attractions are a pleasing part of life. They can be satisfied and left behind, but addictions cannot. An addiction cannot be satiated. A sexual addiction, for example, cannot be satisfied by sex. This is the first clue that the dynamic that is involved in what appears to be a sexual addiction is not sexual, but that the experiences of addictive sexual attraction or repulsion serve a deeper dynamic. An addiction can be anesthetized. A sexual addiction, for example, can be made dormant within a relationship by a fear of losing the security of the relationship. But it cannot be healed without a recognition that it is there and an understanding of the dynamic that lies beneath it. Unless this takes place, it will break through the relationship or the facade of monogamy at those moments when the personality feels most insecure or most threatened. At these times, the personality will feel a sexual attraction to others. Sexual addictions are the most universal within our species because the issues of power are tied so directly to the learning of sexuality within the human structure. Sexuality and issues of power were created within our species to complement each other. That is why each human being who is sexually out of control actually has issues of power in which he or she is out of control with his or her own power. At heart, they are identical. A person cannot be in his or her own power center and be sexually out of control or dominated by the sexual energy current. These cannot exist simultaneously. What is the dynamic behind sexual addiction? The experience of addictive sexual attraction is a signal to the experiencer that in that moment he or she is experiencing powerlessness and is desiring to feed upon a weaker soul. This is the dynamic beneath all addictions, the desire to prey upon a soul that is more shattered than oneself. And this is as ugly to look at as it is to experience. But it is the central core of negativity within our species. In other words, when you are feeling the draw of a sexual addiction, consider simultaneously that you are in a mode of powerlessness that causes a desire to use others to surface within you. And that desire feels like a sexual attraction. Remind yourself clearly of what it is that is being ignited in you. That does not mean that you do not physically feel a connection or an attraction. But underneath it, what causes you to want to act is a different dynamic, one of powerlessness. Allow this consciousness to penetrate deeply within you so that at that point, if you want to act on your addiction, you need to walk through your own reality. What does this mean? If you are married or in a monogamous relationship, remind yourself that acting upon your impulse may or will cost you your marriage or your relationship. Ask yourself if what you want to do is worth that. If you are healthy, remind yourself that acting upon your impulse may cost you your health, because you do not know whether or not the partner that you have chosen carries a disease such as AIDS. Ask yourself if what you want to do is worth that risk. Remind yourself that the partner to whom you are most likely drawn is drawn equally to others, as are you, that he or she has no more feeling for you than you have for him or her. You can be assured that this is the case because the sexual attraction that you have felt for this person is a response in you of a weakness detection system, so to speak, that you have used to scan those around you. When it locates a person who is weak enough to be susceptible to you, to be seduced by you, it triggers within you the experience of sexual attraction. Will you advance your masculinity or your femininity by exploiting the weakness of this person? Will that gain you what you want to gain? Remind yourself that you both have chosen to interact sexually in ways that do not ignite your feelings, because if your feelings were awakened, they would only let you know that the person you are drawn to is no more emotionally involved with you than you are with him or her. It's one thing to think you're sexually involved with someone and not feeling anything. It's another to face that neither is your partner feeling anything for you. Look closely at the dynamic in which you are involved, and you will see that when one soul seeks to prey upon a weaker soul and a weaker soul responds, both souls are the weaker soul. Who preys upon whom? The logic of the five sensory personality cannot grasp this, but the higher order logic of the heart sees it clearly. Is there truly a difference when two consciousnesses are trying to link into a dynamic that ultimately will lead to balance when both have identical missing pieces? What causes the need to dominate, for example, is the same that causes the need to be submissive. It is merely the choice of which role the soul wishes to play in working out the identical struggle. Enter in your own fear, into your own sense of wanting a drink or sex with a different partner. Ask yourself to seriously review all of the times in your life that you thought you would gain so much from that, and face what you gained. Hold on to the thought that you create your experiences. Your fear comes from the realization that a part of you is creating a reality that it wants, whether you want it or not, and the feeling that you are powerlessness to prevent it. But that is not so. This is critical to understand. Your addiction is not stronger than you. It is not stronger than who you want to be. Though it may feel that way, it can only win if you let it. Like any weaknesses, it's not stronger than the soul or the force of will. Its strength only indicates the amount of effort that needs to be applied toward the transition, toward making yourself whole in that area of your life. Recognize that what you are doing when you fear that you will be tempted and that you will not be able to resist the temptation is creating a situation that will give you permission to act irresponsibly. Is it possible to create a test that you cannot pass? Yes. The experience of wanting to be tempted in order to test yourself is the act of creating an opportunity to act irresponsibly, to say to yourself, I knew I couldn't do it anyway, and give in to your addiction. The heart of making a temptation that is greater than you can resist is that you do not wish to be held responsible for your choice. The greater the desire of your soul to heal your addiction, the greater will be the cost of keeping it. If your soul, have chosen to heal an addiction now, you will find that the decision to maintain your addiction will cost you the things that you hold most dear. If that is your wife or your husband, your marriage will be placed in the balance against your addiction. If that's your career will be placed in the balance. This is not the doing of a cruel universe or a malicious God. It is a compassionate response to your desire to heal, to become whole. It is the compassionate universe saying to you that your inadequacies are so deep that the only thing that will stop you will be something of equal or greater value in opposition to your inadequacies. This is the same dynamic that is expressed in terms of space and time and matter by the second law of motion. A change in the momentum, mass, direction of movement, and speed, of a body in motion is directly proportional to the force affecting the body in motion and takes place in the direction that the force is acting. By the magnitude of the costs of your addiction, you can measure the importance of healing it to your soul and the strength of your own inner intention to do that.